Welcome back to the Mid-Year YouTube channel. In today's episode, we're putting bolt-on knockoffs on the center field 65, and I want to give you guys a couple tips if you're installing this type of wheel on your car. So be sure to stick around. So I'm changing up the wheels on the center field 65 Corvette from the wheels that I had on the Misfit to a knockoff style wheel. These are the bolt-on version, and these ones are made by Western Wheel, which they are a nice reproduction. But something you need to know is you need to use the correct style lug nut. In this case, the car that was on before did not. There's actually a little bit of a raised lip on here because of that, and they will not fully seat on the car. I had to remove that lip with the drill, and then on the driver's side I got it to fit. But I believe part of the issue was these lug nuts were for the wrong application. Now, these could be for a Corvette America style wheel. I'm not 100% sure, but these wheels require a very deep lug nut. Not just like a little acorn. They need to have a big collar to sit down in here. So you can see there's a very little amount of the actual stud that sticks out because these wheels are so thick compared to a steel wheel. So there's a little washer that goes with these. This will snug all the way down and hold the wheel properly. So that way it does not gall up the wheel or have you to have a wheel, fall off your car. This is my first time dealing with these wheels. But I just want to let you guys know, make sure you check that you have the right type of lug nuts. And also if you have the true knockoff wheel, they also have a very specific type of lug nut. So if you're dealing with any kind of knockoff or bolt-on wheel for your C2 Corvette, make sure you have the correct lug nut and make sure they're installed properly. Do your research and make sure you look at the instructions to make sure your wheels don't fall off your car. I have the bolt-on knockoffs on the car and they all fit really well. I just had to remove that little bit of a lip, and that doesn't affect the way that they're hub centered on the car. That just removed a little bit of excess material on there. They still fit really tight, and then these bolts also have a shoulder in them to help locate them. Now these bolts I got from Zip. They came in a set of 20, but they had some locking bolts in there. So if you don't want to use that, you could probably find them at a different source online, or you could just buy a whole second kit and, get rid of the locking one because you really don't need that, because I'm sure not many people are going to figure out how to get these off. So there are two versions of these wheels. There's a true knockoff wheel, which I have on my red 63 Split, which uses the spinner as the actual, basically a lug nut. It's one giant nut that holds the wheel on the car. And then this is the bolt-on style, which just uses lug nuts. And this is more like the 67 Corvette style bolt-on wheel. But they both use the same trim, and they both use the same spinner, and they even have the same little slots in here for your anti-theft pins. Now I see a lot of guys having issues with these on the Corvette forums, and I'm not going to go into detail for how you're supposed to install your spinners. You really need to look at your instruction manual and consult the manufacturer if you have any questions. I have true knockoffs on my Corvette, and they're reproductions. They're not original knockoffs, and I've never had a problem. One thing that we do on ours is we siliconed this directly to the wheel, which you can't do here because then you can't get to your lug nuts. But on a true knockoff, you can silicone this in place. You put your spinner on, and what we do is we run a little Sharpie mark, and we keep it by the red, is that you put a little Sharpie mark here on your spinner, and you bring it over to your trim, and then that way you can tell if your spinner is starting to back off. But the instructions tell you to periodically check them. That gives you a quick way to reference to make sure they're not backing off. But you're supposed to periodically check them at different speeds, at different mileage increments. The pin in here is not designed to keep the spinner from fully coming off if it's not installed properly. So you got to make sure that you follow all the steps properly. Like I said, consult the instructions because you do not want a wheel coming off, because you'll drag your quarter panel on the ground or your front end and you'll cause some mechanical and body damage. So you want to make sure you install bolt-on wheels properly, knockoff wheels, and really any wheel in general. Just make sure you do your due diligence. I know these wheels can be intimidating to some people. This is the least of the two intimidating because it's held on by more traditional lug nuts, but just make sure you do your homework, and there's nothing wrong with the real knockoff wheels as long as you follow the correct steps. Also make sure you install the wheel on the correct side. This one says it was left hand, and this is a left hand spinner, so make sure you install them on the correct side. So make sure you put the spinner on the correct side. It tells you which direction is off, because you don't want these coming off either. These are still important to make sure you get them on tight, even though they don't hold the wheel on. You just don't want those coming off. But that's gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know if you like the more torque thrust style wheel, or if you like the knockoff wheel on this. What do you think about real knockoffs versus bolt-on knockoffs? And best of luck to you out there. If you have those wheels, make sure you go through the right channels and install them properly. Next time you see this car, we're gonna be jumping into the mechanicals, getting it running and driving, and getting it ready to go home. So I got a lot of work to do, and I'll catch you guys later.